Hello everyone. Today I wanted to talk about a recent Kino Lorber release on Blu-ray, a 1973 movie called Lucky Luciano, and this is directed by Francesco Rosi, starring the great Italian actor Gian Maria Volante, playing Lucky Luciano. And this is a story. Lucky Luciano was a real-life mafia kingpin, and this covers his later life, most of it from the time he gets deported in 1946. And I guess the first thing you want to know about a mafia movie is do we get some pretty good killings, some pretty good murders, and we do. And very early on, we see the Night of the Vespers. This was from 1931, when under the orders of Luciano, he had 41 other mafia kingpins and their associates murdered on one night in order to consolidate his power and bring about order in the world of these gangsters. And then there's another, and it's presented, the Night of the Vespers is presented as a tableau, very much similar to the one in that Coppola does in his mafia movies. And then there's a later killing set in New York Street that is very similar to what you might see in a Martin Scorsese movie. Although this is before Scorsese. Rossi, though, was a director that Scorsese was very much influenced by, especially Salvatore Giuliani, an earlier film by Rossi, which has a similar documentary but also dramatic scenes feel to it. But Rossi was quoted as saying, The Godfather is a pretty good movie, but it has nothing to do with the mafia. And certainly his take on the mafia is far less romantic and family-oriented kind of a depiction. And a lot of that has to do with the way he saw Italian society, especially Southern Italian society, so dominated by the mafia, in the sense that the state itself really had lost control, including the city of Naples, where Rossi was brought up, in a city dear to his heart. So we're not going to see any romantic view of these. These guys are thugs, and we're not led to sympathize with them in any way whatsoever. And so, like Salvatore Giuliani, the Lucky Luciano sort of moves around in time. Luciano was convicted on a prostitution charge in 1936 by District Attorney Thomas Dewey. And he was given a 30 to 50 year sentence, which most people felt was a little bit unfair, but of course the sentence reflected who Luciano's criminal activities in general. But he was pardoned, or acquitted actually, in 1946 for services rendered the government during World War II. These whatever services they were not, no one ever knows. They weren't identified, but he was deported back to Italy, which was a real blow to Luciano, because he loved living in America. He came as a small child who was born in Sicily. He wanted to, his dream was to always come back. He does make it back to Cuba eventually, but he engaging in criminal activities, and the U.S. government pressured the Cuban government to deport him once again back to Italy. And his activities in Italy are kind of vague themselves. He was thought by the Narcotics Bureau in the United States as being the kingpin of a worldwide heroin trade. But they never got any proof, and there were some people who actually felt that he was being used by the mafia as sort of a front, like sort of a lightning rod to go after him, even though he was basically living in retirement and living on the funds that were coming to him from the United States, because he did live a pretty expensive lifestyle. And there's the chief investigator who was obsessed with getting Luciano after the war. His name was Charles Siragusa, and Rossi cast Siragusa in this role, and he has some fairly difficult, dramatic kind of moments in the movie, and I didn't know that was actually him when I was watching the film, and I was like, where did this guy come from? It didn't. In the commentary, the man who gives the commentary on this movie, he says it adds a surreal quality to it, but I thought it was a bit distracting, especially because there's all kinds of American identifiable movie stars, TV actors in the film, including Edmund O'Brien, including Rod Steiger, who pops up for about a 20-minute segment, a very good segment. Larry Gates, you might remember him as the doctor in the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And in The Killing in New York City, which comes in the second half of the film, it's done silently with a narration. I could have sworn that was Lionel Standard. I mean, it absolutely has to be. No one has a voice quite like Lionel Standard, but he's not in the commentation. The commentary doesn't mention him, and nor is he anywhere in the credits. But even more, and really the best segment of this sort of like going around back and forth in time doesn't even include Lucky Luciano. It is a set during the war, a long passage where we see the Americans army is liberating southern Italy, and so we see Vito Genovese, a big-time gangster in the Mafia, has been hired by the American Army as an interpreter. But basically what he's doing, and he's played by Charles Ciaffi, who was the killer in Clute. I guess I should include a spoiler there. And the colonel that he's working alongside is played by Vincent Gardenia. So again, we have some identifiable American actors, and they're speaking English. So this is a movie that's part in Italian, part in English. It's realistic in that regard. But what's happening in this passage, and we see a great scene in the USO dance where the local Italian women are dancing with the men, and they're there to get food because they're all starving, and part of the liberation, there's all kinds of American aid there, warehouses full of them, and Vito Genovese just helps himself with army trucks and to take whatever he wants, make a fortune selling them to the black market. But at this, which we see subsequent to the USO dance, in the USO dance, the general gets Genovese up on the stage. Oh, we got to get rid of the black market, and the next day, of course, he's just right out in the open, stealing it all for the black market, and with the implication that the colonel is looking the other way, and that's what we did to Southern. This was a part of history I had no idea that they were using American mafia leaders to bring order to Southern Italy as they were liberating. The American army was liberating the country from the Germans, but Genovese says all the mafia people in America were firm supporters of another form of fascism in Mussolini, but times change. Where can I make the money? So now they're anti-fascist. And I haven't mentioned Volante's performance as Lucky Luciano yet because it's a kind of odd performance. I'm not sure whether they really got to the heart of it. Of what we wanted to feel about Luciano. Volante gives a quiet performance, but then in some news conferences he's powerful as only Volante could be. Has this really sickly looking smile at times as well. So the movie in general. I'm not sure it's a total success. It wasn't that successful on its release, although it did get a lot of praise as well. And the next film I'm going to talk about is another Francesco Rosi film, Illustrious Corpses. And this is based on a book, a terrific book I read a few years ago by Leonardo Sciasci, I think his name is. Equal Danger was the title. Fantastic novel. and that covers the Mafia as seen from the standpoint of the judges. There was a few years where the Mafia just went after the judges and assassinated them kind of at will, and Illustrious Corpses is an investigation and how deeply tied in the Mafia was in the whole social structure of a country, and how difficult it is to untangle that corruption. And again, Rosi is seeing the Mafia as degrading to society. It's not something that's necessarily entertaining. So that'll wrap this one up. Thanks as always for everybody who managed to listen to me. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Subscriptions are welcome. You guys take care.